The self-destruct sequence has been activated. Repeat, the self-destruct sequence has been activated. This sequence may not be aborted. All employees proceed to the emergency car at the bottom platform.
Okay, we lit it just like a fuse, so no need to pick and choose. Welcome to 2020, where we do more than interviews. The hottest be coming through, dropping knowledge on all of you. Get a peek at the front of you with the truth that they offer you. Yeah, hands up, we doing it for the culture. To give artists and businesses more exposure. Keeping it real and stay solid just like a boulder. It's about to go all the way down, can't get no lower. Chasing my dreams, know that they get no slower. But if I stay running, I promise they getting closer. Moreover, success my older. And if you're sleeping on me, I'm waking them up like Folgers. I told you, coming from the land with the tide roll. Well, we'll be on a whole different vibe though. We like to ride slow and keep our windows tinted so you really can see us like Stevie Wonder waking up with his eyes closed. Yeah, got the kind of flow that rock the boat. On my 16s of pounds of dough. And if you figure you can hang with me on the mic, then grab some rope. Matter of fact, better grab some hope while you at it. We keep it live, it's time to tune in. Turn up the sound on what you're using. It goes so hard, I think it's bruising. The show is 2020, no need to zoom in. Yeah.
Man, it's kind of a complicated story a little bit. I feel like we've always been a part of the same world, just in different pockets. I've been a part of the spoken word poetry community here in Mobile since 2000 and I'm gonna say 2012.
Okay.
So I've been around for a while, just going to open mics and stuff. And I joined a poetry troupe and stuff like that. I've been performing. And then recently, I had to, I used to have sickle cell disease. Are you familiar with the
Yes, absolutely.
disease?
Absolutely.
So I was one of 20 people selected to be a part of a study in at NIH, the National Institutes of Health. And I was one of 13 who were part of that study who actually got cured from the treatment.
Awesome.
Out of 20.
Okay.
But when I came back March 12th, 2019, March 12th last year. I came back home from Maryland and stuff. And I had been invited to different speaking engagements, just talking about what I survived and stuff like that. And one of the members of my poetry troupe stepped to the mic with Black on Black Rhyme. She invited me to her show in Daphne, which was about African culture and African history there. And I went there to just talk a little bit about what I went through, and I shared a poem I had wrote about it. And I met him. I met Jeremy there.
Jeremy, okay.
And Jeremy had seen my story. He heard about what I had been through, and he was inspired, and his inspiration inspired me, and we just kind of just been feeding off of the fire of each other.
I got you.
Ever since. And so as love, my grandma always said, love is what love does. So if you love someone, you put your efforts where your heart is. You put your work and everything where your heart is. So I saw that he was doing this podcast, and I decided to support. And that's what got me here. Because not only do I want to see him be great, but if I, since he gave me the opportunity, I want to be a part of him being great.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely.
So that's why we here. That's just my character.
This is community.
It's community.
This is community.
Yes, my character has always been to be a part of the community and lift up add value anywhere I'm at.
Okay.
That's always my thing, and that's what brought me here. That beautiful poet is over there. She is a bomb spoken word artist.
All right.
Well, yeah, it don't sound like it when she get on that stage. Man.
I got you.
But yeah, that's a little bit of my story. It's a lot of little,
nuances.
Gotcha. It's a lot of little nuances, but that's pretty much it.
I got you.
But we're here for you.
Yeah.
I really want to know about your story and what got you back to Mobile, and what got you into the mindset of wanting to not only be able to listen, because you're a great listener. I noticed that about you. You're a fantastic listener. You know how to get information and infer even deeper on the things that you don't really have an understanding on, so you can get a better understanding on. And you get excited about sharing what you have. You know what I mean? You get very excited about sharing and giving. And yo, I value that because that's how change happens. That's the importance of history. That's how you learn from history. When you have historians, you have people who are there to tell the tale of the tape. So
well, you know, it's interesting that you say that. Most of why I do what I do, as I've thought about it over the years, has been directly attributed to my family. You know, my father, my mother, my extended family, my grandmothers, my uncles, my aunts, and you know, all those people that I grew up around in Charleston, South Carolina. And you know, my story is unique in that I am a product of the military. My father was in the Army, and so up until I retired and moved to Mobile, Alabama in 1999, I had never lived anywhere longer than about 6 years because we were always on the move. In 1968, my father went to Vietnam. And, you know, in the years prior to that, he was always teaching us about our history, you know, about our family history, you know, and about our cultural history. You know, I can remember my father telling me about the Buffalo Soldiers and the Tuskegee Airmen and you know, the struggles of Harriet Tubman and all these things my father told us. And you know, when I got in high school, I took some studies in Black history. You know, that was back then. You know, in the late '60s, the movement was on. You know, finding our identity. You know, that was all part of the struggle and stuff like that. And you know, I believe it or not, I had an opportunity to attend West Point, and I turned it down. My father wasn't real happy about it, but you know, like my mother said, it was my life, and I elected to go to Talladega College. And I immersed myself for a time in that. I got injured while I was in my junior year and wound up having to sit out of school for about a month. You know, I was working, work studies and working to put myself through school, you know, in addition to what I already had. And so, you know, being out a month and not having work studies for the month and not having, you know, income for the month, plus what it cost me to get back and forth, you know, I came up short, and I was looking for a fallback, basically. You know, I was just going to sit out that semester and work the semester and work the summer, and I got introduced to manual labor, and I decided that, you know, there's got to be more to life than this, and I began to think, well, I need a fallback, and I looked at the military again, and I said, well, you know, I can kill two birds with one stone. I can get money for school, and I can get a trade so that if I ever found myself in that position again, I could sustain myself.
Smart.
And so I wound up and I chose the United States Coast Guard for a myriad of reasons. One, the major being that it was a real job. We weren't training for something that we hoped never happened.
Yeah.
You know, it had a real job, and I got in there and I loved it. But part of that was I found myself being the real minority. I would be at units where I would be one of one or one of two or one of three. And you know, you got to understand, when I went in the late 70s, you know, affirmative action was new on the scene, and you know, there was still the inherent racism that was there, and discriminations, and you know, and the assumptions that we were there because, you know, the qualifications were, you know, watered down so we can get in, and you know, I constantly had to fight that stigmatism about that. And so it gave me a heart for my Black brothers and sisters when I saw them, and they had to go through the same struggles, and we struggled together, and we quickly found out that if we were going to be successful, we had to come together. And come together meant not only sharing information, but it also meant holding one another accountable. Okay? If I see you doing something crazy, then the love that I have for you is gonna compel me to come to you and say, hey man, you about to make life hard for yourself. when we would get some of the younger guys that would come in who didn't quite have to go through what we went through, we had to kind of sit them down and go, hey guys, listen, this is how we got here, and so that being said, I just, when I had, after I had a family and I had children, and I'm looking and I'm seeing that the more things changed, the more they stayed the same, it was like, you know what? There's got to be some meaningful changes made in our community, and we got to stop waiting for other folks to do for us what we need to do for ourselves. And so it put me in a position where, now I had this desire to talk to younger folks and get them to understand the importance of history and the importance of community and the importance of holding one another accountable. Then along the way I got saved and I learned about the Lord Jesus, and I learned about his word, and I've never been one that I just fall for something hook, line, and sinker. I've always been one that I investigate things and I look at it critically, and I found that in all of the things that I searched out, and I looked at Islam, I looked at Hinduism and Buddhism, and I found what I really found was that the Lord Jesus was the only one who provided the true answers for the questions that I had, and what he said the way I should conduct my life was right in line with the things that I desired to do in my community. And so that naturally kind of led me into ministry, and then that ministry led me into jail ministry and ultimately into the pastorship. And so here I am now. I'm just doing what God has put before me to do, and that is to help people to understand, one, God's ways, and two, the wiles of the enemy. The word says, be as wise as the serpent, but as gentle as a lamb. And so in order to be as wise as that serpent, you got to know his game. You got to see what his whole card is, okay? Don't mean you go up and now you want to punch his lights out. It just means that you got to come up with a strategy to counteract what he's trying to do. And so that really brings us to the subject that we're really here for, and that is what's going on in Mobile City and the things that folks behind the scenes are trying to do. Now, I've asked this question of a lot of people that I've run into, and I asked them, do you know what the Zoghby Act is? And maybe out of 20 people that I've run into, I might run into one person who really knows, other than people that are in government. And then in actuality, there are a lot of people that work in the government house down there, and they don't know what it is.
They don't even know what they hear about it, but they don't know the details and what it means and how it impacts our community.
Because they haven't taken the time to, one, investigate their history and know what was going on before them, and two, they don't take an interest in what's going on in city government. Now, what we need to understand, as glamorous as the national federal government may look, the federal government has the least amount of impact on the daily life of a citizen. The governments that have the absolute impact are your city and your county and your state, in that order. City having the greatest, the state having the next, county having the next, and the state having the, and then it moves to the federal government. Why am I telling you this? In the city, they enact legislations, ordinances, and rules that govern what you do on a regular basis, from when you put your garbage out to what color you can paint your house, whether you can or cannot cut down a tree, where you got to go to vote, where you go to school, how your kids, everything about your daily life is governed by city government. And the problem is that most people don't take an active role or participate in that government. They just let those people in City Hall do whatever they want to do, and then they've got to deal with the consequences of it. All right, that being said, prior to 1985, the city of Mobile had what they called city commissioners. If I'm not mistaken, I believe there were 5 of them. And they were elected at what they called at large. In other words, they didn't represent any particular geographic location or group of people. They were just elected en masse by the people. Unfortunately, they were all Caucasian. There was a lawsuit that was pursued. The federal government got involved, and they deemed that there were violations of people's civil rights that were going on in the city and in the county of Mobile, and there was action that had to be taken, and the result of that action for the city of Mobile was the Zoghby Act. It was a piece of state legislation that established the current city government that we live under here in the city of Mobile, which is strong council, weak mayor. So what does that mean? That the duties were divided between the city council and the mayor, along the same lines that Congress and the executive branches are developed, but the council had the majority of say-so. Now, at that, the city was divided into 7 districts. All right. And in that Zoghby Act, basically what they said was how each piece of the government was supposed to work, how legislation in the government was supposed to be made, who could do what, who had what responsibilities. Every detail of city government is outlined in that Zoghby Act. One particular article in that Zoghby Act talks about what is called the supermajority, and that's probably the conversation that everybody's hearing about. You know, that they want to go from a supermajority to a simple majority. And the way it's being pitched out there is being pitched that if we go to the simple majority, it's going to speed up the city processes. Okay, it sounds good until you start digging in the details. Well, the first thing you need to ask is, why was the supermajority instituted in the first place? Well, it was instituted because when they looked at the possible demographics of the city, that they found out that the Caucasian was going to be the majority and others were going to be the minority. And so they said, instead of it being a simple majority, it's got to be a supermajority, which means 5 of the 7 must agree. Now, if you look at the current makeup of the city council right now, you'll find that there are 4 seats that are held by Caucasian and 3 that are held by other minorities. All right? Right now, if there's legislation that's passed, then one of the 3 has to agree with the other 4. That keeps anybody from getting rolled over. If they go to a simple majority instead of a supermajority, then what's going to happen is now these 4 can overrule these 3, and there's the potential that the black voter and the black constituent will not have a voice in city government. Now, I'm not trying to say that anybody's trying to take away anybody's rights. That's not my point, and I'm not trying to get into the politics of it. But what I do know is that the potential for abuse will be there if this is allowed to happen. It was placed there for a reason. It was a safeguard to keep the stronger from overpowering and taking advantage of the weaker. And we don't need to remove that check. So let me tell you what's happening. Right now there's a petition that's circling around in the city of Mobile. And the Zoghby Act outlines how it can be changed. And one of the provisions is that if they could get a petition with the signatures of 10% of the voters that voted in the previous election, then that legislation to change the provision of the Zoghby Act could then be put on a ballot for the rest of the citizens to vote on. Now, notice I said 10% of the people who voted in the last election, not 10% of the voters on the voters' rolls. And so now all they really need is 1,000 signatures in order to put this on November's ballot. That should tell you about how many people voted.
The fact that they even did it that way in the first place should frighten you in the first place. You know, because like you said, one of the main fears is it's not saying that we would get manipulated, but we'd be vulnerable to
Absolutely.
We'd be vulnerable to it. And you don't want to be vulnerable to where your community isn't protected. You don't have people representing you that can protect you from things that are not in your interest.
Absolutely.
So the fact that they're doing that way kind of shows you that they have a plan that is going to be great for them, but awful for us.
Well, like I said, once again, I'm not trying to interpret anybody's motives. I can only look at what I see happening and infer certain things, but that doesn't make it necessarily fact. And so I don't want to say that because I don't want to disparage anyone's character or their mentality, because I don't know. Who knows the heart of men. Yeah. But the only thing I can say is I can take what I see and the totality of it and infer, okay, this can be good or this can be bad. But when I look at this thing, I'm going, this is not a good thing. This is not a good thing.
But what makes it not a good thing, in my perspective, isn't, like what I previously stated, that we're vulnerable for anyone to come and attack us or take away what rights we have. What scares me about it is the fact that we don't have enough people, especially in our generation, who care. And that's what makes us so vulnerable, is that we don't have enough people who are involved in city politics to continue to keep us in a position to where, hey, you can't do what you want. You know what I mean? Like that's what's scary.
Well, let me ask you a question. I don't mean to put you on the spot. Okay. Yeah. Who is your city councilman?
I have no idea.
How about you?
Do not know.
That's telling, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if you don't know who your city councilman is, then you have no idea when they have their city councilman town hall meetings, do you?
Nope.
So how do you think you're going to find out what's going on in the city if you don't even know who your representative is, let alone when their meetings are?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
That's what's so terrifying. That's the reason why I feel like this conversation needs to be had, so that we can get in arms and in action. Because one of the narratives here in Mobile that you will hear from pretty much anyone from our community is, Mobile ain't got nothing going on. Ain't nothing going on in Mobile. Ain't nothing happening in Mobile. Mobile, this, that, and the third. You hear a lot of negativity, but you don't hear any conversations about why. And you don't hear any conversations about how. And you don't hear any conversations about what we should do about it. All you hear about is how awful it is, and they think about, I'm gonna move to Atlanta, I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna go there, I'm finna go somewhere where they making real money and stuff like that. But the thing is that I've noticed from being around, the same colleagues, is that the resources are there. They're just not being. There's just too many disparities.
Absolutely.
The resources are there. The opportunities in Mobile are there. We're just not aware of it. As simple as the fact that we don't know who our city councilmen are. We don't know. But if we knew, we would know that there are options here in Mobile. Mobile isn't as bad as we think it is. We're just ignorant.
Well, let's put it this way. I'm a transplant. I chose to be here.
Yeah.
I like this city. I love this city.
Yeah.
I love the feel. And I guess one of the things that really drew me to Mobile was I fell in love with the black community here.
Yeah.
But the problem is the Mobile that I knew in the 90s and the togetherness that was in the community back in 1990 is not there anymore.
Yeah.
We've fallen into the selfish thing of me, and we're not taking the time to be our brother's keeper, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem, and we don't communicate anymore. It was amazing. About 3 Senior Bowls ago, I had a second cousin of mine who actually played in the Senior Bowl, and we sat down at a local restaurant for dinner, and the tables, there was 3 groups of tables, and it was funny how it fell, and it fell by age. And I'm sitting at the table with my uncle, and so that was that 50 and above group, and then the next table was like, the 40s to 30 somethings, and then the other table over there was like the early 30s to down on below, right? And the majority of the verbal communication that was going on was at the old folk table. We were engaging in conversations, and then there was even less at that 40 to late 20s table, and I looked over and they're having half conversations, and the other half time they're on their mobile device. And then I looked at that other table over there. There was no conversation. Well, there was conversation, but there wasn't any verbal. They were actually, and I couldn't get this. I mean, I couldn't wrap my mind around it. I guess I'm just an old dude, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like, they're literally having a conversation, either texting or Snapchatting or whatever they were using, and they were having that conversation, and they were looking and laughing and looking at each other, and they wouldn't even say a word. They would just, and smile, and I'm going, whoa. And then you wonder why, you know, that there's this big gap. Because those 20-somethings didn't want to talk to me. You know, they would say something out of politeness and out of courtesy, but they didn't really want to hear what I had to say. And then when I looked at what they were really talking about, it kind of mirrored what we see in media today. Who's doing who? Who's doing what? You know, what celebrity is this? And all the things that I perceive to be the negative things that we advance in our culture that don't serve us. I mean, really, do we really need to be neck whipping and loud talking and cussing and fussing about who had on what dress? Really?
We don't. Absolutely do not. Or about what Kanye said. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about old Kanye versus new Kanye. That is not moving an inch in the world at all. We're not doing. We're stagnant. And you know, and the reason and why we're doing all this kind of stuff, the world is kind of burning slowly. They're in the hands of people who really don't even think about this. It's just like, you know, you are very compassionate, you know, in a sense to the world. When you see that happening, your mind goes to, well, let me see how I can connect. But a lot of people from your generation, when they look at generations, you know, our generation and below, and they see us doing that, it's like, well, I don't care. I gotta look for what I.
Let me tell you what my generation says when it sees you. Let me tell you what they say, and I'm just giving you truth.
Yeah.
They say they crazy.
Yep.
They're a bunch of fools.
Yep.
They don't want to listen to nothing.
Yep.
I ain't got time to fool with them.
Yep.
You know what my response is? I'm 63, getting ready to go on 64.
Good.
20 years from now, I'm going to be 84. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That 20-something generation, that 30-something generations are going to be the 40 and the 50-year-olds when I get to be an old man. All right? And if I don't do what I need to do to help you be prepared for when I become an old man, then our society ain't going to stand a chance, because we're going to have a bunch of idiots trying to run things.
Yeah. Yep.
Let me ask you this. How do we, because I've talked to younger demographics a lot. My nieces are in that younger generation. And I asked them, what is the most effective way to communicate to them? Because the answer I get from them, the reason they're so abrasive back, is because they feel that they're under the eye of scrutiny, which they are. Because in a sense, we have to scrutinize them. That's the way you refine yourself. That's the way you find out what's true about you and what isn't. How can we relay this to them at their level?
You know what? That's a good question. Because you know what I found to be the biggest problem in this communication between intergenerations is there's a lack of mutual respect.
I agree.
Okay, now when I say lack of, I don't mean that my generation is intentionally disrespectful of your generation, but our idea of respect is totally different than your idea of respect. Okay? We were raised to give deference to our elders. We were raised to understand that they didn't get old being stupid.
Right.
Okay? And that if they said something, there was usually some history and some life experiences behind that. And don't get me wrong, I'm fighting that today. I'm fighting that with my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren right now. And the problem is that this younger generation, in their minds, or they project in their minds that they already have the answers. And they're trying it their way. And it's not working. But they won't come back and admit that, oh, maybe I didn't know.
Right.
But then at the same time, my generation is they're looking at them going, see, I told you. Nobody wants to hear that.
I agree.
So the fault lies in my generation in the mindset of I told you so, and the fault lies in the generation that's being affected because they're not smart enough to say, you know what, let me swallow my pride and go over here and get this help so I don't keep bumping my head against the wall. You know, it makes no sense when you're drowning and a person throws you a life preserver, right? But you refuse to accept the life preserver because you don't like the way they threw it.
I just heard that on a show. I'm not one for watching TV a lot, but I literally just heard something similar to that just last night.
Man,
Paraphrased, just last night.
that is literally my life, man. Like I was telling you in court the other day, I was raised by my grandparents, by my grandmother. So a lot of the millennial ways kind of rolled over me. I don't even connect with it. Like it's so many different ways that I don't connect with my wife. We don't connect at all, and that's one of the biggest things that we have just between our dialogue, because I could say the right thing, but if I don't say it the way that she feels like it should be received, it's completely rejected at all. Completely. Like it's unwise, like it was foolishness. Even though it was exactly what she needed to hear. You know what I mean? And I'm just, I really feel like this generational thing is all mental. Honestly, just from my observation. I get that there was a time that you came from and the world was a whole different place. So your entire environment was different than our environment. However, even though I came up in the same environment as most millennials, I had a different teaching. I came home to a whole different environment. I go back out there and I'd be like, that's stupid. Why are they doing that? And I come back home to a world that's like, you better not do that. I'm gonna tell your tail up. You know what I mean? So I learned to respect my elders, and I learned how to look before I walk, to listen before I speak, and to always be mindful that there are forces greater than you. So, but this generation, especially Generation Z and millennials particularly, they feel like the world is different. It is so far apart from the world that y'all came from that there's literally no advice that you can give that can help them with now.
Navigate it.
Navigate it right now. But I don't see that. I don't see it that way.
Let me see if I can shed some insight on my observations. I tend to tell my peer group that it's our fault. We had good intentions, but what's the old saying? The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
Our good intentions were the same good intentions that our parents before us had. I want my children to have it better than I had it. Except our parents had enough sense to educate us. Our parents had enough sense to teach us our history. Our parents had enough sense to make us engage in the things in society around us. I mean, why do you think that there were whole school loads of children in the 60s that were, out there getting hit with water hoses in Birmingham and Montgomery? Because they were engaged by their parents to take action. Well, when we came up, that generation, the beginning and the end of the beginning of the baby boomers, we wanted our children to have it better than we had. We said, okay, well, you know what? We've been in the struggle and we've made things better. We want our children to be better. And we basically handed them everything. We didn't make them work for anything. We coddled them. And what that did was that preceded that generation that comes next, the generation of my children, where the children were first, and what they wanted to do. I mean, think about it. If you look around today in average household that's got children, that's got means, their everyday existence is centered around the children. It's about the ballet and the dance class and the soccer and the football and the baseball, and their whole existence is centered around those activities that those children are being taught that they are the most important people in the world. And so what happens now is you have this generation of people who think that they are the most important people in the world, that everything revolves around them, and if you're not giving it to me the way I want it, when I want it, then you're not for me, you're against me, and I reject you. but that's not the real world. And so we've handicapped you because we did it. We did it for honorable reasons. We didn't want you to have to go. I did not want my son to have to go through in the military and put up with the mess that I had to put up with. I didn't want him to have to. I didn't want my daughters to have to put up with, the stuff that my sisters and my mothers had to go through. No, I wanted their lives to be better. And so, but in making their lives better and giving them things, giving them what they wanted instead of making them earn it and be productive, I basically made them self-centered and lazy. And if they're that way, what are they going to teach their children? And so here we have it. Yeah. And see, here's the thing, and this is what I encourage you guys to do, you younger generation. Instead of just looking at what the behavior is, try to look past it and see what the source is. And if you can understand the source, then you can understand how to counteract it. Okay? Now, if self-centeredness is an issue that you see, you can't change it by telling the person that they're selfish and self-centered. But what you have to do is you have to interact with them in such a way that they're at least willing to engage you, and you help them to see what they need to see. One of them, just like what I did that day when I first met you, one of the things that I use as a tool to get people to engage in thought is I ask probative questions. I don't come up and just tell you what I want you to know. I will ask you a question with the hopes that your answers will lead you in the direction that you need to go in. I am not trying, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to get you to answer the way I want you to answer, but I want you to answer in such a way that you eventually come to an understanding and a truth that's going to help you elevate yourself. So I have to accept your answer where you put it, because that may be where you are. And through the answers, I can help you move to where you need to be.
Self-evaluation.
That's look. Well, while me and Jeremy, and I'm sure Ebony, are blown away by the magnitude of your wisdom. No, I'm being honest. I'm being honest here, because these are jewels that we can put and integrate into our daily lives. This isn't something that we can just carry on like, that was nice. That was a good talk. No, this is something that you can be like, well, maybe I should live different. Mm-hmm. Maybe I should interact with people in a different way. Maybe I should be less judgmental and more proactive about the change and holding people accountable. Because that's what that essentially is doing. It's a strategy to hold people accountable without even having to get your hands dirty. Because they look at themselves. You know what I mean? Everyone has self-respect. Everyone thinks to a certain degree, in some capacity, that they're a good person, or by their intentions that they're good.
Oh, absolutely.
So when you question what motivates them, like you said, questions the source. When you question the source of whatever their perspectives are, it makes them get into a position to where they feel like they either have to explain it or defend it.
Scrutiny.
Yeah, that's scrutiny. So, but it's the way that we've been scrutinizing.
It's direct.
Yeah, it's too direct, and it's a language that they're not familiar with.
Because of interpersonal skills.
Yes, and just because of the way that was raised, like he said, I like the way you put it, because I got my daughter in soccer. I got my daughter in soccer. Like, you are the most important. You know what I mean? That's me right now, and they hit me right in the guilt.
Well,
but at least she's 8 now, okay, so there's still hope.
But you got to understand, there's another side effect of that too. Okay, and this is the one that's really the one that should hit you square between the eyes. Once again, I said you put the children first.
Yeah.
Okay, that's biblically incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you're going to live by what God says, then your spouse should be number one. Okay, think about this. If you put your children first in everything you do, you're going to be doing it for at least 18 years or plus, right? So what happens to the relationship between you and your spouse during those 18 years as your children begin to get more and more of your time and more of you, because you guys are putting everything that you've got into them, and then you look up and they're gone and you haven't grown together.
Now, I've been hearing that, like, for real, I've been hearing that a lot, like, with the counseling that me and my wife has been going through, because I've been putting my children first, specifically just because of the need. It doesn't matter why, but I've been facing myself with this, you know, internally, like, what do I really want? And I get a lot of satisfaction from being a father. You know what I mean? It's so simple. Kids are so easy.
But you should derive more satisfaction from being a husband.
Right.
Okay, because when you say, I'm deriving my satisfaction from being a father, then it's all about you. Okay? Well, what about your child and your wife? What happens now if the child starts to grow in ways that you are not satisfied with or you're unhappy with, and now all of a sudden that fatherhood is not as satisfying because you're not getting the direct, immediate results of that child doting on you that you're getting right now? What then?
Well, it's not what I work
that's
for.
rhetorical.
I know. I get that. I get that. I get it.
Let me show you how this works. You know, I was at the Metro some years ago, and I was, you know, doing a Sunday service at the minimum security barracks. And what happened was the room that we were using was a staging room for the trustees when they went out in the morning. Okay, and so I came in, I would come in and, you know, the guys would see me and I'd talk with them. And one of the things that I don't do is I don't introduce myself as Reverend anybody. I'm Leroy just like anybody else. And so these guys got to know who I was. And so one particular Sunday morning I came in and they were back in the back and they were having this conversation, and, you know, the words were flying. Okay? And one of the guys looked up and they saw me, and then he went to apologize. Oh man, I'm sorry, we're sorry. Hey guys, we got to hold the language down, da 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 da. And I didn't immediately say anything. I just continued doing what I was doing. And I walked over there, because once again, it's about engagement. And I walked over there and I said, hey guys, I just want to ask you a question. And they looked at me. I said, let me ask you this. Do you respect me more than you respect yourself? And to a man, they go, oh no, you're a man just like us. So I said, well, okay, well, good then. If that's the case, then why was it that the language you were using wasn't good enough for me, but it was good enough for you? You understand? And this is what I'm saying. And that's just by being aware of your surroundings and your circumstances, and being aware of what people are giving you and how you can help them overcome what you are perceiving to be those things that are detrimental to them. But then again, see, that comes back from that Christian fellowship thing, that love your neighbor, love your enemy thing that God is trying to grow in and groom in us. And see, not everybody can do this, because if you don't have a vested interest in your community, if you don't have a vested interest in your people, if you don't have a vested interest in wanting to make the world a better place, then none of these things will do you any good, because you're only going to see it from your own selfish point of view. And you'll miss the boat. See, I can't take credit for none of this. All of this comes from above. All of this comes about because I love the Lord Jesus more than I love my own self. Because I already know without him, I'm just another jacked up brother. I went through, I can't tell you how many years of marriage thinking I knew it all and thinking that I loved my wife the way I was supposed to and I loved my children. And I met the Lord Jesus head on, and he showed me, you know what, son, you don't know anything what you think you know. And when I started to listen to what he had to say and how he said I should conduct my life, I realized I didn't. I realized that everything that I did was driven by self-gain, self-glorification, and selfishness. Even when I had the so-called good intentions.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
See, I got to push this. Look. the pastor in me is coming out on this thing because see, this is what I got to take us back to. You know, by our own admission, we're all four of us in this room, we say we are sons and daughters of the Most High God, right? That means Jesus Christ is Lord of our lives. We got to examine that word Lord. What does that word Lord mean? One who has and has been given complete authority in every area of the subjects of which they've been given lordship. I know that was a mouthful, wasn't it? In other words, we're saying, Jesus, you have authority over every area of our lives because we don't know what we're doing. And before we go do a thing, we need to check with you first. But we don't. We go jumping out here all half-cocked. We go jumping out on what we feel and how we think. And then when it goes sideways on us, we're looking at each other all crazy like, oh, I don't understand. When it's right there before us in the Word all the time, if we would just take the time and say, okay, God, what do you have to say about a husband and wife relationship? What do you say about how I should treat my wife and how I should treat my children? And earnestly seek his answers. They're right there and they're real simple. You know, man, one of the things that really slapped me in the face was, husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church, giving himself up for her. And when that thing really hit me, I realized that I can't look at what I want.
It's all about her. You got to submit to her. Wow.
Now think about what that looks like if you got two people doing the same thing back to each other. So that means that whatever I get from my wife. I don't have to take from her, but she gives it to me because that's what she desires to give me. And at the same time, she doesn't have to take from me because I give her what I desire to have, and we just keep giving each other, and there is no taking. Do you understand the joy that comes in that? And see, that's the concept that we got to understand. You know, God didn't make this thing hard. He made it real easy. He said, listen, essentially this is what he said. He said, young man, you need to change. Do you want to? And you got to answer yes or no. And if you say yes, then he says, tell you what, you ain't got to do the changing. I'll change you. All you got to do is just do what I say. You ain't even got to research it. All you have to do is just attempt to do what I say. And when you slip and fall, if you're listening to me, I'll tell you when you make a mistake. And I'll even tell you how to straighten it out. Now, how is that hard? That is easy. You know why? What it is? It's not that it's hard for us, but most times it's inconvenient for us.
Let's go down that road a little bit, if you don't mind. That is something I struggle with other people, and that ties into my forgiveness. When I give, I'm a giver. I have no problem, and talking with you now shows me that the potential of me getting and the joy of giving can be selfish depending on my motive.
Oh, absolutely.
So you just revealed that to me just through this conversation. So how do I give without expecting anything?
Wow.
Because it's what happens is I look forward to that joy that they experience, and when it's not the experience that I expect that they have, I feel resentment, and I can admit that. So how do I just give and just never look back? Because
you have to truly examine the motives for why you're giving. And I'll give you another example that I use in the Metro, trying to get these young men to understand. You see your significant other, your wife, your girl, whatever, whoever she is that happen to be in your life, the one you say you love. And you walk down and you say, for instance, she loves orchids. And you see an orchid in the store and you go out of your way and you get that orchid. You say, I'm going to give that orchid because I really love her. And you get the orchid and you come in the door. Baby, look what I got for you. And she takes the orchid from you and she says, okay, thank you. And she sits it in the corner over there. how do you feel?
I get bitter.
You'll
I
be
can
angry,
honest.
right? So here's the question then. Why did you really get it? Did you get it because you loved her, or did you get it because you was expecting something in return? And 99% of the time we expect something in return, even if it's no more than an act of gratitude to the person we gave it to. And let's be honest, guys, we're men. You know, when we do something and we see our wife gets excited or our girlfriend get excited about what we do, we're expecting a little something. Okay? Let's just be real.
Yeah, I expect a little sugar.
Okay?
I can admit
Exactly. And so here's the point. Then when you go do it, you better be honest with yourself as to why you're doing it. And then you need to recognize that if you're saying that, you know what, I am expecting something in return, then you better expect that nothing's going to be given in return so you don't get your feelings hurt. And then you ask God to help you with that.
Yeah.
Then you ask God to help you with that. You ask God to make the change in you so that, watch this, so that your selfishness is done away with, because that's ultimately what he's trying to lead us to, is to get out of the selfishness that we are. That's called sin. That I am above all others. That's what selfishness says. That I am above all others.
On the end of the spectrum, because I relate to I relate to your concerns, but my concerns are different as far as giving, because I give freely. I don't have any expectations at all. But what happens is that I'm not God. There's only so much of me that I can give. So when I'm in a relationship with someone and I'm giving my all, and I'm not getting anything back, like that relationship you said between Christ and the church is just both parties just giving. But if I'm just giving, there's nothing left of me after a certain point.
Okay, it comes back to what I told you earlier. It comes down to the lordship of Jesus Christ. Like you said, it's you. You have made these decisions. You are doing this. It's what you want to do, but you're no longer yours. Sometimes we put ourselves in situations that God never intended us to be, no matter how noble it might look.
Hey.
Okay. But you already know my situation. So
okay, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We put ourselves in those. Once again, it goes back to the lordship of Jesus Christ. Before you go jumping into a thing or go jumping into a relationship, maybe you might need to take a step back and say, okay, Lord, you know what? Is this something you want me to do? Is this someone I need to be engaged with? And Lord, if I am, then show me the extent of what you want me to, of what you want me to do, so that I don't get in the way.
I never looked at it that way.
You know what? I have, but I'm not even gonna lie, I lost my way. I've seen it that way a bunch of times in my life, in different periods of my life. But after a certain point, you know, your carnality just kind of takes over, and you get right back into the groove of your natural flow, and you get out of sync, and what they call, you grieve the Holy Spirit a bit. When you grieve the Holy Spirit, you get out of sync with that. And I've been out of sync for a while now, and because of that, I guess I've been more dependent on the tenderness and sincerity of my own heart, because I know my intentions are pure. You know what I mean? It's satisfying for me to just give. That's just my nature. I'm altruistic by nature.
But guess what? Whether you recognize it or not, that's selfish. You know why it's selfish?
Why?
Because you're doing it because it makes you feel good. I need you to understand that. Okay,
I get
it. And this is what it comes down to. It is self-gratification, and self-gratification is what gets us in trouble. Mm-hmm. Okay, when our motivations as the sons and daughters of God should be, do I gratify God with what I do? Yeah. Am I seeking His approval before I do this, or am I merely doing this because I know the end result is I'm going to feel good?
Yeah, that's
Is
definitely-
his end going to be served? Is in the end of it?
Yeah.
Is his plan for whatever this situation happened to be? Is it contributing to what he wants done?
I understand that, and I'm not gonna lie. That has not been my motivation. My motivation has been death. I know it's morbid, but I have brushed shoulders with death so many times in my life that at the forefront of my mind is, what am I leaving behind? I know I'm gonna die. I've accepted the fact that I'm gonna die. I'm expecting to die, but under what circumstances?
Right.
So my mind isn't on, I'm sorry, my mind isn't on the will of God whenever I'm giving. My mind is on my life having value before I go.
Value to whom, though?
To whoever I'm around, to my community, to my family, to anyone other than me, because I can't take me with me when I go. I'm gone.
Let me show you why that type of thinking can be futile. Okay? Let's just say family. You spend your whole life trying to amass a fortune for your children, for your posterity. Can you guarantee that they're going to get it?
No, I'll be dead and gone.
Can you even control whether it's going to be a benefit to them or curse to them? But who can? Who knows what's best for them, even when you're gone? You ever considered the fact that maybe your giving in the wrong circumstance can be more of a hindrance than it can be a help? If you're a crackhead and you ask me for $20 and I give you $20, have I helped you?
You hurt me.
And if I don't know,
Watch
watch this. And if I don't know you, then I won't know that you're a crackhead, and I won't know that I've just hurt you, and I've walked away in my own selfishness feeling good because I gave somebody who needed money. Not realizing that I've just helped put a pipe in your mouth. Now, if I stop and I say, okay, Lord, how do I need to do this? How do you want me to do this? He may say, well, just take them down and buy them something to eat. Have a conversation with them. Find out who they are. That's more of a help to you than me giving you $20 and you're a crackhead.
Right. But what keeps us from doing that is, like you said before,
Your own selfishness, your own self-gratification.
Convenience.
And convenience. That's exactly
Convenience.
it. But once again,
it's more convenient to just get the $20. It's a little bit harder and more time consuming to have a conversation with somebody and feed them.
but which is going to last for eternity? You helping that person find Christ through your kindness and your gentleness, or the fact you gave them $20 so they can go smoke it? Because here's the thing. I can only go by what you tell me. You tell me that you're a believer, then you already know that life for you really doesn't end when you die. It's just chapters over when you move into another chapter. And the same word that we read, I hope the same word that we read says this, that you know what, when it's all said and done, that we're all going to have to come before the Lord Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. At the Bema seat. Those other folks that don't know him are going to be at the white throne judgment, right? They're done already. But we come to the Bema seat, and our life will be put before us, right? Yeah. And our works will be tested by fire. And only those things that are eternal will last. Kind of puts a little perspective on the things that you do while you're here, isn't it?
Yeah, it realigns my focus again, I suppose.
That's why iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, we lose our way sometimes, and and that's the thing that I've always loved about Christ and about my relationship with God specifically, is because of the relationship with grace that exists.
Oh, absolutely.
So no matter how far apart you go, no matter what happens, if you do lose your way, you get always right back in line. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's kind of what's happening with this conversation for me personally. Because you're right. I knew better. I've been knowing better. I said this verse. I don't remember the verse specifically, but it was in Hebrews, and I think it was chapter 6, verse 25 and 26, when it was talking about when you know better. God is more severe on you if you
absolutely.
know. he's more severe on you if you know better and you don't do better. And that verse has been hunting me for years because I do know better and I haven't for my own selfish reasons, like you said, you know. But while I got the mic in a little bit, before we get too far off into this, because this is benefiting, I think this will benefit not only a lot of people's minds, but a lot of people's heart and soul, and it will just give a greater value to their spirit, you know. But how do we learn and figure out who our councilmen are? How do we get involved in our local?
That's really simple. You use the medium that you're most familiar with. You get on the internet. The city has a website, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe there's a thing that who is my councilman. I think that's one of them. And what you do is you put in your address, and it tells you who your councilman is.
What's crazy is I've actually done that, and I'm subscribed to it. To the, you know, anytime there's an update through the city, like I'm subscribed, so I get like this is happening in the city, this is happening in the city, but I just never check the emails. I just never check the emails.
Right. Well, there you go. But that's how you do it. You can go straight to that website. I think it's mobilecity.gov, I believe is the website.
I think so.
Just go there and like I said, I think there's a title there, who's my councilman, and you can click that link, put in the information that they ask, and it'll tell you exactly who that person is.
Yeah.
I'm going to include that link on screen now if it isn't already.
All right.
That is important. I have an idea for that, by the way. I'll come back to that.
Well, and believe it or not, it's the same thing for your county commissioner also. Now, there are only 3 county commissioners.
Yep.
And so, you know, you need to know who they are.
CityMobile.org or .org.
Oh, is it .org? Okay.
Yeah, it's .org.
Okay, thank you for the correction.
Yeah. Yep.
So but there's that link there.
Yep. I try to keep up with it. Try again, because I go to anytime the mayor's office is open for like any kind of parties or anything like that. Right. I go over there and I try to brush shoulders with people, so I can get to know what's coming on or what's going on. But you know, a lot of what's coming in the future is tight-lipped to certain people.
Oh, absolutely.
So, you know, I subscribe to, because they have the subscription list so they can just email you updates. And so I did that so I can know when it happens. That way I can not only be informed, but I can give information, because people in my community, they're not linked to what's going on within the city. They're not linked to this part of the world, of their world. They're not linked to this part of their world. And everyone in my, like I said, in my community are always looking for opportunities, but they don't know where they are.
Right.
You know, and it's as simple as just looking on a website. It's as simple as looking on the website, so you can be informed and you can know who represents you and you can vote and you can, you know, you can figure out where you are and where, you know, maybe you want to be. You know, figure out what's out there. You know, in my community, the only thing they talk about is, well, you know, Austin ain't hiring and. You know, we need Airbus. You know, they ain't hiring. I need. You know, they act like that's it.
Let me show you the importance of really knowing what's going on in your community and what the city is doing for you. You know, one of the dilemmas that I struggle with, and we talked about this, you know, the other day when we were talking, is that, you know, I look at my grandchildren and my great grandchildren, and I ask, what's going to be available for them 20 years from now? You know. What's in the mix now that's going to benefit them in 20 years? When I look at Mobile, I find it a little distressing because, you know, you have the shipyard, you have Airbus as, you know, decent wages, but then, you know, the whole hype about Walmart distribution and Amazon distribution and all these other things, if you look at the wages, they're not living wages. So, you know, gone are the days when a young person could graduate from high school and march off and go to, you know, Scott Paper Company or Georgia Paper. Those days are gone.
Yeah.
Okay? So what are our children, particularly our young black children, what are they prepared to do when they leave from high school? And the answer is nothing. And that should frighten us. you do realize that the unemployment rates for Black America is usually at least twice that of white America? For that very reason. The opportunities to sustain life with a living wage without some education beyond high school is almost non-existent. You know, the schools have gotten away from vocational training. You know, and so these kids come out of school and what do they got? They can't even learn auto mechanics. They can't even learn carpentry or any of those things that they could readily go and get a job and at least halfway make a decent living. And so these are the things that we in the community need to start looking for. But guess what? We can't rely solely on government to make opportunities for our future. If we are not vested in it, if we're not willing to go out here and build coalitions with people and say, hey, listen, how about let's start an apprenticeship together in carpentry or plumbing or whatever, so that these kids can have an opportunity to learn a trade so they can make a living. Then maybe some of this stuff that we're seeing on the streets, we can curtail because we give people hope again.
Yeah.
You know, I can't tell you how many times I've heard from kids that, oh, what's the use of going to school? You know, my granddaughter, right now, my granddaughter she finally graduated from the trade school that she was, but for a long time she was despondent because she was like, what's the point? I did all that work in school and I can't even get a job. I can't even take care of myself. I get it.
Yeah. There are only, I think, 1 or 2 schools that offer like vocational studies, and that's Williamson. Williamson High School does that, like welding though. Austin, I think.
Okay, once again, so we're back to the 1 or 2 employers that are in Mobile.
That's what I say.
Yeah, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, let's be honest, that's a problem.
It is.
If you don't know somebody, you're not gonna get in those places now because they can afford to be discriminatory.
Yeah. Yep.
And so if we don't make opportunities within our own community, then I digress because, I'm a firm believer that integration as a whole was detrimental to the Black community.
True. Facts.
And I say this because, when we were segregated, we were forced to be somewhat self-sufficient. We had to have our own doctors. We had to have our own dentists, our own ophthalmologists. We had to have our own grocery stores. We had to have our own plumbers, our own electric. We had that because they would not allow us. And so for the most part, we were self-sufficient. And what I saw in Mobile when the first time I came to Mobile was in the mid 80s. Okay. And what I saw was the remnant of that time. Okay. And a thriving Black community. I mean, 8 Mile was the place to be. But then integration came. We got upwardly mobile. And those of us who could afford to leave, what did we do? We fled. And what did we leave behind? The less fortunate. And there was nothing there to help support them. There was nothing there to help sustain them to make a living wage because the folks that had the businesses and had the ability to help folk, they left. And until we start returning back to community, our plight's not going to change. And here's a really sad part about it is the term gentrification. You know what it amounts to? It amounts to herding the unwelcomed into controlled areas where you can be oppressed, depressed, and monitored. My hometown, the city of Charleston. When I was growing up, there were more Black folks living in the city of Charleston than there were white folk, because they were leaving the city and they were going out. And the dividing line for Black Charleston and white Charleston was a street called Calhoun Street. Everything to the south of Calhoun Street was pretty much Caucasian. Everything going north was pretty much Black. Okay? Now I've gone back some 40 years later, and Charleston is almost all white. And very few of the native Charlestonians live in Charleston. Most of them are transplants. When my father bought that house in 1968, he gave $12,000 for the home that we have. It's about 1,600 square foot house. Okay, that house today is valued at $379,000. Okay, it sounds like a good thing, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Until you got to pay the taxes. Okay, now for my family, it's fine. My father set my mother well; she's good. But let's be honest, when you look at the majority of black folks, we don't have a lot of accumulated wealth. Okay? So a lot of those houses that these people were living in became what they called in South Carolina as heirs property. In other words, it got passed on and passed on and passed on, and it was divided amongst the children, so no one had a clear title to the house. All right? And so now the taxes are going up and up and up and up, and now the people that live in the house, they can't afford to pay the taxes. So guess what happens?
It gets bought out, taxes. And that's how they come back. They get it for pennies on the dollar by just paying the taxes. I did the research.
The house next door to my uncle, who just passed away, the guy paid a little over $300,000 for the house and put almost $500,000 into renovating the house.
I've seen it. I go to the website frequently just to view it, and I've seen people houses get bought $350. Sometimes, I mean, phenomenal looking houses, $2,000 just bought. People forget about taxes. They get caught up in their daily repetition. Next thing you know, they get a letter.
Yeah.
Letting them know that someone has purchased their home.
Yeah, I've seen it too. I know a lot of that is happening with the Gullah Geechee people. A lot of them, they were forgotten years ago, and all of a sudden it's like.
Well, here's a big problem with what's going on there. A lot of those people were living out in some of the Barrier Islands and those islands that were like out.
Yeah.
And certain folks discovered those islands. Mm-hmm. Those people were subsisting on those islands all their lives, and once again, there's no clear title. It's been, it's heirs property. It's been there all the time. Collectively they'll pay the taxes and keep it going because they knew they had to pay the taxes. That was one of the things that was ingrained in them. But here's the problem: you get a corporation that comes in because this family got tired or there's nobody left, and the last heir sells the property and they get a pretty good penny, and now they put up a multi-million-dollar resort.
Yep.
Guess what happened to the property taxes for that particular area? And so your little 2 acres now, instead of it being worth, say, $200,000 now, is worth a few $1 million, and there ain't enough for y'all to pay the taxes on a $2 million property. So guess what happens?
Yep. Yep.
There's something intrinsically wrong with that.
Yep. That's what I first had when I was studying the Gullah Geechee people and a lot of the cultures. I had stumbled across that, and that's why I had started learning. Did the same research you. It's a rabbit hole. It's a rabbit hole. It's
it absolutely is. And so and here's my thing. And I'm one of those. I just I won't say I'm a deep thinker, but I think of things probably a little more abstract than other people think about them. But the whole idea of property taxes. Okay, if you think about it, look at it from this point of view, and I'm not advocating overthrowing property taxes or whatever, but just from a common sense point of view. You own a $500,000 home. I own a $50,000 home. Does it cost the police any more money or the fire department any more money to respond to your $500,000 house than it does to my $50,000 house?
No, it does not.
Then why are you with a $500,000 house paying 3 times, 4 times the charges for those same services that I get for my $50,000 house? And here's the sad part about it. Chances are, because of the value of my property and where I am, I'm probably going to need the city services way more than you do sitting in your $500,000 house with the $500,000 homes and communities around it than the person that's sitting there with a $50,000 house with a $20,000 neighbors around. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's just economically, and it's not a color thing. It's an economic thing.
Yeah.
You know, let's just be honest. The economically disadvantaged tend to have more problems, more public problems than the economically advantaged. I'm not saying the economically advantaged don't have problems. They do. They have personal problems, but they can contain their problems more times. Okay? So who gets the calls the most? To what neighborhood? So why am I paying 5 times the rate because I have a $500,000 house than the fella down here has got a $50,000? And that's the intrinsic inequality of property taxes based upon property value. Now, I don't know how you get around that, but that's just how it is, you know. And, you know, that's that progressive tax system that they didn't really intend to be progressive, where the more well-off can help offset the ones that really aren't as well-off, and that's probably a good thing. But it's just those concepts, and so until we start to think about our world around us and why and how and what is fair and what isn't and what can be done to change the things, then the status quo will always remain the same. The haves will have and the haves not won't. And we just got to understand that. And the answer is not taken from somebody to give to another person. That is not the answer. Because trust me, you don't want anybody taking your hard-earned dollars and giving it to somebody that you are in agreement with. And just because that person has $1 million over here, that policy or that feeling is no different from them than it would be for you if you only had 20,000. And they say, well, we're going to take 5% of yours and give it to somebody. You know, it just ain't right. And we just got to be, you know, smart enough to recognize that. And you know, the truth of the matter is, most black folks are way more conservative than they really want to. They would really say.
Man.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Agree. I
Okay.
agree.
Ooh.
Way more conservative.
Man.
It's just it's a cultural thing at this point.
Yep.
You know, that's all it is. I was talking to somebody, one of the probation officers the other day about the politics, the differences between African American households and Caucasian households. Like in a Caucasian household, politics is like second to religion. You know what I mean? In black households, politics is just like, it don't matter.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, there's a reason for that. Because for a long time we were just struggling with the day-to-day trying to get by, and the truth of the matter was we couldn't change politics anyway, because for a long time we couldn't even go to the polls and vote for who. I mean, Mobile is a classic case of that. You know, as within your well, maybe not. When were you born?
1990.
Well, before you, almost within your lifespan, because we're talking 1985 before the current city government took over. But that's within a stone's throw of your life.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, I get those people. It don't make no difference. You know, we ain't got no representation anyway. I mean, they ain't gonna put one of us in office. Why do I need to vote? I mean, look, they got the same 5 white guys been there for the last 25 years. And so I get that. But it's a new day.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way to making it, for lack of a better term, to make it cool again, because that's what it appears to be the thing.
Yeah.
To make it cool again, I think, is this public conversation.
Yeah, exactly, because I don't get, we got all excited about President Obama. And don't get me wrong, I love President Obama. But what could he do for me?
Right. We weren't excited about Congress. That's a whole different story.
Yeah.
Because that's where everything gets written down. That's what he just signs something.
Yeah.
That's all he does.
He's just a face.
Yeah.
See,
He's
you know,
just a
Signs
face.
a piece of paper.
and so it's amazing. You know, the average, let's be honest, the average black person out here right now today, if you ask them what the 3 branches of government are, they probably couldn't tell you. Okay? Let alone tell you what their job is. You want to, and don't get me wrong, that's just not black folk, that's white folk too.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You know how you know white folks are just as ignorant about it? When you can get a candidate that stands before you and tells you that I want to go to Congress, or I want to go, I want to go to the House of Representatives, or I want to go to the Senate because I want to support the president, that should throw a big red flag up at you, whether it's your candidate or not. Because if you understand how government works, then you already know that that mindset is already a violation of the Constitution.
Right.
Because that branch of government that you want to go to was supposed to be a check to that government, to that branch of government. And so if you're already saying, I'm going to go support that branch, then how are you a check to it when you're saying, oh, I'm there to support you? That's a problem. But because people are ignorant about how their government is supposed to work, they fall for the okie doke. They've been bamboozled.
Okie doke.
And this current president don't give 2 cents about you at all.
He got millions. He wouldn't give 2 cents for you.
And so here's the really sad here's the really sad part about it is the very people who are in support of him, you know, those poor, you know, middle class working white folk who think he's going to do something for them, he's the very ones that they are hurting. You know, he called himself giving us that little tax break, but see, the devil's in the details. See, that tax break was only good for a certain portion, and then it's going to start to escalate and go up because somehow he's got to pay for all that money he just gave away. And guess who it's going to be on? It ain't going to be on his rich friends. It's going to be on those who are in the middle and those who are just at the edge of middle. We're the ones that are going to feel the squeeze of his misguided policies. That's just the truth.
Yeah. See, conversations like this, I feel, like you said, today, it's a new day. So these conversations should be had casually, just as casually as it's been in the white households for decades at this point, because now we, like you said, times have changed. We have the ability now to be more active. So we should be more informed. We can't really take proper action without proper information. You know, you can't just go around ignorantly worrying about social media stuff.
I find it, you know what? I find it absolutely just ironic that we can have conversations about Alabama versus Auburn and be passionate about ready to go to blows, or Jordan versus LeBron, and be compassionate about it. Now I'm about to say something that's probably going to be a little controversial, but I need us to think.
We're no stranger to it.
Yeah.
Here's the problem that I see in a Black America that just really bothers me. That the most influential people in our culture and our society are people who, one, pretend to be somebody else for a living, or people who play games for a living. And you think they know more than you? I don't get it. But these are the people that we tend to gravitate to.
I totally agree.
Now, I remember I was living in Miami and my son had gone to a Heat's game, and he was a Heat's fan at the time because Alonzo Mourning came to his school and he came home all excited. Oh, Dad, guess who came and visited today? Alonzo Mourning. And I just kind of looked at him. Well, you know who Alonzo Mourning is? Like, oh yeah, he's a forward for the Miami Heat. But it's Alonzo Mourning. And I had to look at him. I had to look him in the eye and I go, son, so you're telling me that I'm supposed to get excited over somebody who plays a game for a living? Of course, she didn't like it, it's like, oh, there he go again, and it's like, I don't like talking to you because you just let the air out. I go, no, son, I just want you to be informed.
Right.
I just want you to understand what you're getting excited about. Is it really worth you being excited? You showing all this enthusiasm for Alonzo Mourning, but what has he done for you?
Dribble, shoot, he can dunk.
But he ain't done it for him. What benefit did he derive other than being entertained for a moment, from what Alonzo Mourning did? For that matter, what did any Black person derive from that? What do we derive from LeBron James and all of his hoops and all that other than something to talk about around the water cooler? How does his performance on the basketball court enrich your life, make you a better person, make you more educated? How?
I do like the fact he got the schools. I just want to
I'm sorry?
The school. I do want to make that note. LeBron.
Well, okay. I'm just, all right.
He's
I'm not.
negative 1%. But
Yeah, I'm just, I'm not knocking LeBron. I don't know that much about him, and God bless him if he started a school. You know what I mean? Great. But for the most part, for example, when Kobe died, I was really disheartened. Okay, because there were how many other people on that airplane with Kobe and his daughter?
Mm-hmm.
Huh? How many other people?
It was like 9.
9 other people. Yeah. But who did you hear about? What made his life more valuable than the other 9? Mm-hmm. I mean, really, what did Kobe do that really impacted anybody's life, that really made a difference, that was any different than them other 9 that were on that airplane? Nothing.
Entertainment.
Don't get me wrong. I hate.
No, I agree with you.
I hated that the man. I hated that the man died.
Yeah.
And my hope, to be honest with you, my thought when I heard, and once again, I guess that's the preacher in me. My thought when I heard he died was, man, I hope he was saved. Mm-hmm. That's what my thought was.
Yeah.
Because if he wasn't, all that he did,
it's not going to stand against that fire we was talking about.
Didn't account for anything. Think about it. Didn't count for
spiritual scrutiny. Something else, bro.
Yeah. But still,
I'm sorry, man.
But still, though, I mean, that's a valid point. In our culture, we focus more on things that don't matter. Like in the grand scheme of things, I mean, it makes us impassionate about life. It makes us, it helps us pass down the time. Maybe even helps release a little bit of his anxiety, but it doesn't help us prepare for what makes us anxious.
It feels.
Does it really? Does it really ease your anxiety?
Not me personally.
No, I'm just saying.
Because I'm not a sports guy.
That's what I'm asking.
I know what you mean. I get what you mean. But for me, I guess my form of entertainment is art and music. That kind of expression thing. There's plenty of songs that I've heard that effectively kind of changed my life just from hearing it. But I can't think of a football or a basketball game that just made me be like, what I need to do better. I honestly, just being real, that never really impacted me that way.
And here's the flip side to that. You know what? You're absolutely right, because I can remember there were certain songs that invoked certain things in me, right? Yeah. One of my favorite songs I used to hear coming up, Me and Mrs. Jones. Me and Mrs. Jones, we got a thing going on. Right. And it sounded good, right? Until I really started listening to the lyrics and what he was saying. Oh, wait a minute, hold up, wait a minute. Whoa.
That's what I'm faced with now, being older. I'm looking back at my childhood, looking at what I used to praise and what I used to recite daily, because I'm in the mindset of now I am what I eat, what I see, hear, and think daily.
Absolutely.
And it affects your day whether you realize it or not. So I try to pay more attention to it. That's why I surround myself with the things I love and have physical manifestations of the things I want to do, and now I'm going to better myself. And one thing I'm afraid about of being a parent, and I'm super conscious of, is what I'm allowing them to see or what I'm allowing them to ingest on the daily. Because my mom would just play the radio and I would sing it and she would hear this. Did she know the lyrics? Or was she doing what you were just saying, just easing her anxiety, not realizing I was reciting something I had no business?
Yeah.
So those are the things I take account of now, like when I hit my 30s. And this, I feel like me doing this now in my 30s is something I should have been doing in my teens now.
You know what? But listen, and don't get me wrong. I get you, because I used to say this all the time, and I stopped saying it. The only one regret that I have in life is I didn't come to Christ earlier, and God had to stop me. He had to stop me and show me that had I not gone through those things, had I not done those stupid things, I would have never come to the awareness that I needed to come to in order to come to him. And so he had to let me go through, he had to let me, watch this, he had to let me go through finding myself until I figured out that I needed to find him instead.
That goes along with what I heard in church today. Apostle was talking about how we need, God wants to give us the wisdom before he gives us the favor. Because favor will get you in the door, but wisdom will keep you there.
Right.
So if you don't have the wisdom for the position you've been begging for the responsibility that comes with the position that you've been paying for, you're gonna lose it and embarrass yourself.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? You want the favor to be a doctor, but you don't want the training, the wisdom that comes along with being a doctor, with being a physician, the responsibility of sometimes having to choose one life over another, and having utilitarian ethics. Like you need wisdom for that. You can't just have the favor. And I think that still ties into what we've been talking to all day about the generational thing, about how we've been raised. We've been given, our generation have been given the favor instead of the wisdom.
Instead of the wisdom.
So
exactly.
So even though all these things that through your intentions were good, putting us into sports and appraising everything that was valuable about us, that's good. We didn't have the wisdom to value it. We didn't have the wisdom to carry it with us so that we can protect ourselves against forces that are designed against us. Instead, when the voices come, we feel like we're entitled to victory just because we're special.
Yeah.
Not because we have the wisdom to know, hey, maybe I shouldn't say what I shouldn't have say certain things, or I shouldn't do certain things. Maybe I shouldn't go looking for trouble, because when I find it, I'm gonna regret it.
Yeah, when you look, if you look for something, you're gonna find it.
You're gonna find it, you're gonna regret
Absolutely.
it. But you need that wisdom in order for you to carry that same spirit, that same air, that same blessing, that same favor in your life, throughout your life. You need wisdom for it. So, we should never get things that we're not prepared for.
Let me show you how
It can destroy us.
Let me show you how that can really. Let's just put. I'm a rubber on the road kind of person. If you kind of figured this out yet, I'm a rubber. The concept is great, but until you can actually see it in action, sometimes the concepts will elude you. That same thing, that preparation for wisdom. Okay, instead of favor. Favor me with $1 million. Okay, no, understand, right? Because that's what we do. Favor me with $1 million, all right? But you can't manage 20. You mismanaged 20. What are you going to do with $1 million? So that favor that you're asking for, though you think it's a benefit, it isn't. It's a curse to you because you don't have the wisdom to deal with it the way it needs to be dealt with.
Exactly. You're going to blow it.
Man.
Or kill yourself.
Or kill yourself. Or it's a myriad of things that you could do when you don't have the wisdom that comes with what you're asking for.
I'm one of the people that try to look at everything in a 360 lens. It's tough to do it, and I'm not even going to be arrogant enough to say I see it 360. I think I see it about 320. So it's funny you brought that up, because that is something I tussle with all the time. People always say, man, if I just had the money to do this, I'd be able to do X, Y, Z. And that is something I heard growing up my entire life. And so I created this fantasy, my majority of my life, that one day I'm just going to buy this magic ticket at the lottery and it's just I'm going to be straight. But then I thought about it. What comes with it? How many people will pop up that feel entitled? Property taxes. People that will see me with this large amount of money. Now, what are their intentions? How could this hinder my family? People are being kidnapped over money before. How could that hinder? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I look at things in such a broader lens. And like you were saying, we mismanaged 20. When it comes to decision making, I'm so skeptical and not sure in anything that I do. I can know for certain I have the money to do something, but I always check my bank account beforehand. That shows how low my faith is, not only in myself, but in every other aspect. I'm always skeptical. So how would having that money essentially help me is what I'm discovering now at this age. So now I'm trying to move different. So it's funny you brought that up. That's been like a lifelong.
I gotta take you back to what I gave you before. Okay? And that in everything that you have is the Lordship of Jesus Christ premier and predominant in every decision that you make. And are you confident enough in in the relationship that you have with him that one, you'll hear him, and two, you'll be trusting enough to do what he asks you to do. That's what it boils down to. Okay, once again, God did not give us the spirit of what? Fear, but of power, of love, and a sound mind. And so you need to understand this. Whenever fear comes in and you're fearful of decisions or fearful of circumstances or whatever, you need to understand who that's from. Fear is not from God, but fear is from Satan. And if you're feeling fear about something, then you need to recognize who's whispering in your ear. And once you recognize that and you go to the master, then he'll give you direction. And then you can always make the right choice because he's going to tell you what you need to know. Right. But if fear is involved in it, then you should already know that you're probably headed in the wrong direction because you're being directed by fear, which is not of God.
That uncertainty is not of God. I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
And God doesn't scream.
He doesn't. That's the other thing I noticed.
But
God
Satan,
will come to you with
but
the
Satan does.
quietest voice.
Right, but Satan does. He'll scream at you all day long, trying to distract you. You know, when Moses met God on the mountainside, God didn't holler out, "Moses, come here, boy. What you doing up here?" No, what did he say? He said, "Moses, move your shoes. You're on sacred ground." As a matter of fact, he beckoned Moses to come near, didn't he?
Speaking that shit. Yeah, that's powerful.
Don't nothing change for a son and daughter of God. God will beckon you to come near. And he wants you to recognize that when you come near him, you're on holy ground. And so whatever he gives you in the holy ground, you can take that to the bank.
Yeah. When God speaks of fear in the Bible, it's more in reference to respect.
Yes.
Absolutely.
When it comes, like when he says fear me, he means like respect me.
Respect me.
You know, when I fear this, respect the fact that I have the ability to do this. Respect the fact that I. Yes. So there's like two different types of fears.
Basically saying respect your elder.
Yeah.
And I'm your elder right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Fear the Lord, your God, with all your heart. Respect.
Right.
Respect. But the other fear,
That's not of God.
that's not of God. The
That
other
is
fear
not of God.
is not of God. The other fear is there's nothing good come from it.
Right.
Like even if you just look at it by itself and look at fear in and of itself, it produces no good whatsoever. None.
I feared for my life, so I did this.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
I was afraid of X happening, so I did this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, one of the big discussions that I have with my preacher friends across the broad spectrum is this whole idea of church security. And I get asked all the time, well, what are you doing? Nothing. What do you mean? If I believe what God says, then I have nothing to fear. And that if something does come, it comes because God allowed it. And if God allowed it, I can't stop it anyway. So why would I engage in such a futile action?
Right.
You know, that's that old age argument that you hear from the folks on the right about gun control and lack thereof. You know, well, if I'm armed, I can protect myself. No, you can't. The only way that gun is going to protect you is if you see me coming before I get to you. In other words, I'm going to be stupid enough to wave the gun and let you know I'm coming at you with a gun. How often do you ever see that?
No, you don't. You don't. I mean,
Okay.
younger
So here's the
generations
thing.
kinda
If I
stupid, though.
yeah.
The younger generation's stupid.
So here's the thing. If I'm going to do you harm, right, and it's my intentions to do you harm, I'm not going to announce it to you. I'm not going, I'm coming into church. Y'all get ready. I'm going to gun down as many as I can. No, I'm coming in there and I'm going to have everything that I need concealed and I'm just going to open fire.
Is that what's his name?
What's his old buddy?
The white boy?
Booth.
Dylan Booth?
Dylan, yeah.
Dylan Booth. He was
Ruth
in there,
or whatever his name
whatever
was.
his name was. He
Yeah.
came in that church and he sat in like he was just there for Bible study.
And so somebody being armed in that congregation would not have stopped that young man from doing what he did. Now they might have put him down and kept him from killing maybe one more person than he killed, but they would not have stopped the violence. The violence would have taken place. Now here's the sad part about it. If you have never taken a life, then you don't know how it's going to affect you, whether you're doing it in self-defense or whether you're doing it in anger or whether you're doing it because you're in war or whatever, until you've actually done it. And for that matter, I don't even know how I got here, but anyway, for that matter, having been involved with law enforcement in the Coast Guard, that listen, even though we train with weapons on a regular basis, if you are not current, then chances are you ain't gonna hit anything anyway. And you may even freeze up, okay, while you decide what you're gonna do. See, here's the thing, think about it now. There's a time delay from the time you perceive things to you identify what the threat is, to you formulate a plan and you actually execute that plan. But you got to remember, the person that you're trying to defend with is already in action.
Right, it's already active.
So that's foolish if you think that you're going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Now, I'm not advocating taking anybody's guns away. I'm not advocating anybody, I like to shoot. I've always liked to shoot. I was raised up around guns. I don't own one. The reason I don't own a gun is because I know when I was a young man, I had a terrible temper and I didn't need to have a gun.
That's exactly the reason why I don't own a gun. At least not a carry carrying. Like for the house, it's different. But
I don't even have one in my house because my wife doesn't want guns in the house. So I respect and love her enough that, you know what?
Well,
we don't need a gun. I've never been in a situation where a gun would have helped me. I've even been robbed and a gun would not have helped me because the guy got the drop on us.
He was already active.
And so had I had a gun, I'd have just lost my gun and now he'd have had two. I'm just being real.
It don't make it less funny. It don't make it less funny. It's like, what? Oh, man. Yeah, give me that. Give me that.
Oh, that too.
That too. Give me that too. Give me the extra clip. Yeah.
made
Thank you, bro.
sense right there.
Yeah.
you make a job.
Because I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people who done got stuck up for that. Like, oh man, boy, they don't got me, boy. They done got all my guns, bro. I'm like, all of them, man. Yeah, they done got all my guns, man. In the game, my car, man. They got everything, man. All them guns. All them guns you got. All them extra clips. All them bullet packs. And they just took it with one little small what they had, little 22? With a small little 22, they took it. Everything.
It make you think, man.
Well, think about
all
the.
it takes is a plan.
Well, think about the two. Think about the two guys. I won't say what I really think about it, but those two guys. But think about those two guys in the Walmart.
That killed each other.
That killed each other.
Yeah. You heard about that?
No, I didn't.
Walmart on
Government. The government. Yeah. I forgot what they call it. The market.
Down the aisle,
Yeah.
back and forth. And the killer thing is, one of the gentlemen were from your generation, and one was from a generation we're talking about, and they shot each other and killed each other.
Well, actually, he's a little younger than he was from my son's generation.
Oh,
he was
yeah, he was like
40 something.
I think he. Correct. And the gentleman, the younger gentleman, was like 22.
22 or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Shot
They could have
killed
been.
each other.
They could have been father.
Walmart.
They could have been father and son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All this started it. They said they walked by each other. One of them said something, and drew on each other and killed each other.
They both died.
Because you disrespected
They
me.
went to the same hospital.
Yep. Both of them died.
Wow.
Said something, doesn't it?
Yeah. It says a lot of stuff. Actually, a whole lot of stuff. Like, how petty can you be?
Bro.
But once again, getting back to the politics of things, that is the nature of the culture of our young black men today, and unfortunately increasingly so with our young black women. You don't believe me? What was that show? Hip Hop and
Love and Hip Hop.
And Love and Hip Hop.
Housewives of Atlanta.
Okay. I mean, I just saw in passing the other one where the female was supposed to be having an engagement party and because somebody said something she didn't like or did something or whatever, she hauls off and punches the other girl out and screaming and hollering about, oh, beep, 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 you messed up mine. And I'm going, really? Really?
I don't even allow that stuff in my house, man.
Well, I mean, you know,
I can't do it.
the thing about it is this. Okay, there are certain shows that come on the channel that it was on that I like to watch.
Oh, that's
okay.
I understand.
And you know the advertisement for it came out. As far as watching it,
Yeah.
you know that I tell you another one, and boy, I know some of your
They'll be
listeners are probably I could see the airways burning up now. But those two shows that well, actually, it's more of them now that Tyler Perry put out, the Haves and the Haves Not, and If Loving You Is Wrong, and I guess I just don't understand it, you know. And once again, from a Christian perspective, why would anybody who says that they love God and are looking to live righteousness want to sit there and chew on unrighteousness when you said yourself, young man, that you are what you eat? Mm-hmm. Why would you want to eat a bowl of doo-doo?
That's what it is. 100,000.
I mean, every sin that God said not to do is in that show, and people are going, you know, I'm like, wow. And look, I said it to my congregation, and you know, I got a lot of flack about it. And I'm going, and I'm like, okay, listen, guys, I'm only giving you, you know, what's true now, you know. So I'll tell people all the time, if it upsets you what I just said, then maybe because it struck a nerve,